Hello and welcome to this edition of the Happs Takeover Wednesday. We're really excited to have you with us. Let us know where you're joining from by dropping a comment here. We're really excited today to have two experts with us, some amazing scientists, Dr. Christian Zase, who is a physicist and, among other things, an incredible wildlife photographer who has traveled outdoors and been sharing some incredible wildlife content on Happs. And we also have with us a wildlife biologist that you all are familiar with, I'm sure. Georgia Terry, thank you so much for joining us, and we're excited to hand off the show to you.
Hi, thanks for the introduction, Peter.
My
Like Peter
pleasure.
mentioned, my name is Georgia Terry, and I'm a co-host of the Humans and Wildlife show that Christian and I do together. So, Christian, what are we going to talk about today?
Yeah, thank you, George, and thank you, Peter, for giving us this opportunity. It's quite a spontaneous topic. Usually we talk about wildlife, and we do, and this time we're going to talk about wildfires. In fact, I'm sitting right on the edge of one right now. So that's what the topic's going to be. And usually the focus is very much, of course, of wildfires and humans. And I would like us, Georgia, also to address wildlife, of course, in wildfire. I think it's quite important.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be bringing in some of the aspects of wildlife. And so, I think that, wildfires in many parts of the country, they're like a regular periodic thing. But what we're seeing now with some of the changes that humans have brought to the world is that we have, these really intense wildfires of a scale that we didn't used to see. But we didn't want to miss this opportunity to talk about it because not only have wildfires been going on for a while now in Christian's region of the country, but he's really right in the thick of it right now. And so we had kind of a last minute topic change in part because of that. And so I'll definitely be bringing in the wildfire aspects and the wildlife and wildfire aspects. But Christian, could you maybe orient us real quick, like with the like when, what, where, how, like how long has this been going on? Where are you? Where are these fires? And like where are they in relation to you?
Yes, I must say this was quite a shock to suddenly come be right in the middle of something I never thought I would be. I mean, I've heard, we have friends in Redding, California, we have Kit and so on. So I've seen, not no, I shouldn't say I've seen, but I have been definitely she has been very clear about how terrible Redding has been affected in the whole areas, and usually when it doesn't affect you, you read about it. It was just like reading news, honestly. So what happened was, because I like wildlife so much, and also astronomy, by the way, we decided to get a small summer cottage here on the Okanagan, which is a beautiful area of British Columbia. It's a warm area, it's a wine area, and it's actually a very much a holiday resort for us. It's not so much the holiday resort that interested me here, it was more the wildlife, and to give actually broaden the education on it. So that was in the end of March. I will just show you a map if I can. Just give me a second because I'm going to jump between screens
Yeah,
here
definitely.
and show you
Um,
what's going
and if I
on.
may kind of while you're bringing up the map,
Mhm.
just to orient people to kind of part of the severity of this situation is that Christian has evacuated that house now. There've been like formal evacuation calls, and yeah, here's the map. It looks like.
Yes, I'll explain it to you. Can we put this full screen? Maybe it's easier to see it. I'm not sure if we can, Georgia. Do you know how to do that? Um,
Uh,
if
I am.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so I'll just, because it's difficult to know where you are, so I'm just going to show you the map here. I'm zooming in. So that's in Vancouver. Many of you may be familiar, of course, with Vancouver, British Columbia. There's another Vancouver south of the border.
Could you zoom?
So yeah,
Could you zoom out even more for us,
of
Christian?
course I
Actually,
can.
just
Of
to make
course I
sure
can.
everyone, like
Absolutely.
people tuning in
So
from all
there, of
over right
course
now.
I can. There you go. So there's lovely Vancouver. There you go. And if you travel eastward, you can see there are lots of lakes here, right? So we're going to travel east now. I'm going to zoom out a little bit just to find it. So I'm zooming in now to an area of Kamloops, and you can see what pops up immediately is, wow, this is reality of today, lots of wildfires. And as you go a little bit more east, it's about 4 hours by car through the Coquihalla, what we call the Coquihalla, you come to Lake Okanagan, which is a beautiful glacier lake. You can see north is up, south is down. Just going to zoom in even more. You can see it's a very narrow glacier lake, very rich in fish, lots of wildlife going around, lots of osprey nests on the just on the shoreline. Absolutely magnificent. We have bighorn sheep here. We have deer. We have all kinds of different raptors. It's a paradise, and that's why I came here. So the resort where I'm at, I'm just going to show you that. 1 second. It's near a place called Fintry. Okay, so there we are. So let's go back to the fire right now. So I'm actually right there now. We had an evacuation order. I'll talk about that in a second.
Christian,
yeah, go on.
Christian, sorry, to be clear, I just want to say, like, each of those red dots is a fire, right? But
Yes.
potentially quite a big fire.
Absolutely. It's so misleading. Thank you, Georgia, for pointing that out. So this fire that is called the White Rock Lake Fire started, I think, close to Merritt, which is a large town, is now covering an area over 55,000 acres. It's insane. It's insane. We have so much beautiful forests, and it is so difficult to control this fire. It happened all along the 97 that you see here. That's Route 97, and it spread so quickly in the last days because we had very strong winds that people just lost their house before there was even a warning. That's how serious it was, and there was, of course, a lot of devastation from people who lost their homes, blaming the government, and so on, backwards and forwards. Really horrible situation for them. And what happened is that wildfire came. Sorry.
Christian, do you have any idea of how fast these fires can travel?
Like
yes,
I do. I mean, with strong winds, they can go 4 or 5 miles a kilo. They can cover 4 or 5 miles in 1 hour. It's insane, and really cover them so fast. So they can go even faster because they can jump when you have strong winds, but that is typically what you can get under strong winds. Yeah.
Christian, can you so you had some amazing footage recently of the fire, that the smoke from it that the news used. Can you throw that up quickly? We can come back to it again later, but just so people can sort of visualize.
I certainly will do that. Now, this is my friend Mark Horner. So what happened? I'll tell you. On Friday, we were evacuated. Before I do that, I just want to quickly show you a picture of what it looked like. 1 second. So you can get an idea of why you suddenly go into evacuation. So there you go. This is what it looked like on our street. It looks like absolute hell. That was on Friday. I evacuated earlier already because I saw this coming. I just thought something's not right here. We got to get out. And you can see, I mean, this is along our street, and if you see a fire like that, you get very scared. So first the power went on Friday, just after 8 p.m. and the power was lost. The power was lost not because the utility switched it off, but because there was an interruption in power really due to the wildfire, right? And that was spreading so fast that there was an evacuation here on the La Casa, where about 400 people, 400 houses are. But further north, it was reaching the shore at an incredible rate. It was completely out of control, right? So that's where we're at. So Saturday morning, just to complete the story, Saturday morning, I then went to, I got up and I thought, I got to do something. I can't just sit here because we got so many conflicting reports. Some said it's very severe, others said it's nothing to worry about. So I thought, I got to see this for myself. So I took my wildlife equipment and I went to the opposite side of the shore. You just saw Lake Okanagan. Okay, and so I'm going to go back now to the screen capture here.
So,
yeah, go on.
Yeah, Kristen, just to be clear, this is after you had formerly evacuated, right? You had driven 6 hours away from that house, but then you heard reports and you wanted to go back.
Yes.
To your that was in danger, right? Because the fire was so very close.
Christian, just a note, apologies to interrupt, but it looks like the screen share is flipped. It's reversed, including the map that you just showed.
Okay, sorry, I lost, I think. I hope you can still hear me.
We can hear you fine. I was just noting that the image here that you're sharing with the screen share is reversed, and so the map
Oh,
was as well. It was actually backwards, mirrored. Yes.
uh,
That
thanks for
explains
letting me know.
why how confusing
It's
that was.
everything.
Yeah, we just
Yeah,
got a
so for
few
anyone who's
comments. Wanted
confused,
I'm so
to
sorry.
chime in. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah, might be worth revisiting.
No,
Thanks
no,
to
no, no.
everyone for flagging that.
I'm going to just rotate the image. Let me just, no, that's the wrong
yeah,
rotation. Let me just
for
rotate.
anyone who's confused, Christian is near Vancouver, which is indeed on the west coast of North America. I was like, wow, it must just be confusing with all the lakes or something, but it looks like he's like in the east somehow.
I'm sorry. I had no idea. Let's see, is this better?
Alrighty.
I
Yay,
reversed
there we
that.
Oh,
go. Let's see that map again.
Yes, I'm so sorry. Let's see that map again. Absolutely. 1 second. Let's do this again all over. Okay. So back to Google Maps. Hopefully this is correct now. Can you see this correct? The map?
is it easy, Christian, for you to kind of zoom out to the scale of more like where we can see most of Canada or something
Yes,
like that?
of course. But
And then zoom,
does it
yeah,
look correct now on the screen? I'm not sure.
yes, definitely.
Uh,
And
okay,
yeah,
excellent. So
even
okay, as you can see, here we go. So that's Canada, 49th parallel. That's the main border along here. And most Canadians live close to the 49th parallel. And once again, let me just show the map. Vancouver on the west, and you travel about 4 hours east to an area here called Kelowna. Okay, that's it. And that's the beautiful Lake Okanagan. And now you should be able to see the White Rock Lake fire indicated here, and that came all the way came all the way here to the central and north Okanagan. Here's Vernon. Vernon is a large town, and Vernon was on evacuation alert when the fire approached it. It wasn't evacuated. Everyone along the shore here from a place called around Kilney Beach and so on, all the way down. Everyone was evacuated on Friday. So I hope that's clear now, Georgia. Is that a bit clearer?
yeah, yeah. And Kristen, you
Okay.
talked about
Yeah.
these fires moving, miles per hour, like how fast they can go, like, I think you said 4 or 5 miles per hour, but how long have some of them been going on? Like each individual fire can last quite a long time, correct?
Well, this is such an important piece of information. I'm just going to jump back here now to the screen. I'm going to try and let this run in the background whilst I talk.
Okay.
Okay, so let me just switch off the 1 second. I'm going to switch off the audio. So this is edited, by the way, from no, it's 1 second. It's just come on. This is should be hopefully connecting very soon. It was running before. Now it's just, let me just see if I can reload
Yeah, it looks like
this.
it's buffering, but so
Yeah,
we can see like this is like smoke from the fires that's causing it to be so hazy, correct? Yep.
yeah, that's completely correct. 1 second, I'm just going to try and rerun this. Wait a second. Sorry, let's get rid of the ads, and here we go. Okay, here we go. Now it should be, no, it's still buffering. I have no idea what's going on. Okay, let's just wait. I'll talk anyway. So,
Yeah.
so I went on the east side to film all this, but your question was how long have these wildfires been going on? And the answer to that is we had a heat wave at the end of June. 1 second, I'm going to try and just bring in another video, maybe from the Facebook page. It will work. Let me
Yeah.
just see. I'm just going to go back and just put myself back on the screen. Sorry for these technical issues. I don't know why they
Yeah, you're
are.
fine. Maybe while you're
Hmm.
working on that,
Yeah,
I'll talk a little bit just
you
about
talk, you
sort of
talk, you
naturally wildfires and what
you
should
do
be
that,
happening
please, Georgia.
with
I'll go
them.
and
Yeah.
solve this. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, so just like for context of what like a healthy ecosystem with wildfires looks like in some types of habitats and some types of ecosystems, fires are a really important part of the natural cycle and processes. So like, for example, there's some species of trees that need they need like fire in order for their pine cones to open. The cones will only open in heat. And so, many animals rely on plants and the habitat that trees and forests create. And so, like, if you think of plants needing these fire, then the animals often, by virtue of that, also need fire in the long run. However, we get problems when we have these fires that are hotter than normal, going on longer than normal, where it's surpassing the scope of what these plants and animals have adapted to, like it's surpassing the scope of what how like the heat that they can tolerate and how long they can tolerate fire for. And so these kinds of fires that Christian and others are experiencing right now are incredibly problematic for animals and wildlife. And part of the reason why, I mean, a big part of the reason why we're seeing them is because of climate change. With the shifting like atmospheric conditions and temperatures, the fires are bigger and hotter than normal. Another part of why we've seen bigger fires is because of like past mismanagement. So at least, and I can't actually speak as much as for in Canada, but a smaller but also important part of the story is that people for a long time suppressed wildfires. We didn't let things burn. We, would put them out as soon as they started because we didn't want, people's homes and stuff like that getting threatened. Well, what happens when you keep putting out fires that would normally spread is that you have all of this fire kindling build up. So if you can imagine, like, you, instead of just a little bit of dead trees, you have like a lot of dead trees in the forest now that are going to catch on fire when one finally comes. So because of sort of this history of fire suppression that people were doing, we've that in combination with climate change has given us now these really huge fires that are a huge problem for people and animals. Christian, how are you? How are
I'm,
things going there with
thank you.
the
You explained
video?
that very well. I'm nearly there. I'm just trying
Okay.
to see if there's another way to get to this video. 1 second. So just give me a second. I'll get there. Yes, here we go. I found it. I found it. Good. Okay, 1 second. Let me just switch off the audio here. Hopefully this will do it. Okay, let me share this. I think this is it. Okay, sorry everyone for these technical problems, but here we go. Here we go. This should be fine now. Yes, so this is the La Casa Resort that you can see, and that is about 4 miles south of the fire. So this is how this really happens. I had no idea how coordinated these efforts are. So what you see here are 5 planes that run in coordination, and this was all filmed on Saturday morning as the winds fortunately died down, but the heat is of course so immense, and the self-ignition of fires is so immense. So you can see what they're doing here is they are completely flying in sync. You'll see them coming back now, and you can see how dangerously close the fire already is to the beach, and also to what you saw in the beginning. These pictures I was showing, looking north. There you can see a plane in close up. So I was able to use my wildlife equipment in order to bring these very unique shots and show how this is actually done. As you can see, they get down, they glide along the water, and this goes incredibly fast, and then they take off again. And
So they're picking up water, Christian, correct, when they're gliding along the
exactly,
water.
that's exactly right.
And
So
they're
they're picking up
dropping
water, and then they're dropping it. But what is interesting, Georgia, is the way they drop it. It's completely synchronized, this effort, right? There you can see I zoomed in on one of the fires just to show you. And here you can see, I mean, it looks absolutely spectacular. Of course, it's horrific, but you can see how well coordinated these efforts are. By the way, thanks to Mark Horner for doing all the edits for me. I was so stressed out I couldn't do it, and he edited all my footage into this, so it made a really beautiful video.
That's
So
wonderful.
yeah, so this was all taken on the from the East Coast with a very long lens, trying to follow what's going on.
On Saturday, this was taken?
Yes, all on Saturday,
Or
everything. I drove on Saturday. I drove 5 hours to get there, 4 hours, I took all the footage and then I left at 8 or 9 p.m. back for home. So I was, it was a crazy day. I don't know,
And
it was crazy. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and just to give us an idea of how like things have changed with the fire, like have you filmed at this location before? Like have you filmed eagles and wildlife at this spot before,
Yes,
or
and
did you come here for the
thank you for mentioning that, Georgia. That's the of course the important topic, right? So what you're looking there, of course, is not that, and that is so important. Is you can see individual houses there if you look carefully, but I love this area so much on especially on the west side because of all the ospreys. I've done live broadcasts there on ospreys from nests, and I met such incredible people there who gave me access to their property so that I could broadcast, and which is so difficult, right? So I've been able to live stream it. If you've seen that, I've shown an osprey nest with 3 chicks, and that was in June. That's now that's coming here, by the way, just close to sunset. So it's from the colors. It's wow, it's
Yeah,
quite
it's really
something to see
beautiful.
this. But yeah,
And
so what?
those
Yes.
those those osprey videos, were those the ones you had where like the chicks were overheating and dropping from the nest?
Exactly, Georgia. So what happened then? That's the important point. So what happened then is at the end of June, it got so hot. What's so sad about wildlife? Nobody talks about wildlife. Kate, by the way, who's also here, she's a fantastic um, uh, 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 a wildlife supporter in Vancouver area. Very nice to have you here, Kate, the Pacific Northwest, Kate. She already pointed this out. There's all the attention is going, of course, on human life. And I mean, look, I have to be honest, I'm very privileged. Okay, I'm privileged because first of all, we weren't affected. And second of all, we have fire insurance and so on. You can get through material losses, but you cannot. But the tragedies of humans and wildlife as such are the things that really touch me. The community gets very close. So let's talk about wildlife then.
Well,
What?
we can talk about wildlife again, but I mean, I don't want to. It is the humans and wildlife show, and part of
Yes.
it is that the things that affect wildlife also affect us. So I don't think we can talk about both because I mean, one of the things that I remember you telling me a couple weeks ago that I think is important to share with our viewers is how when you were first evacuating from your house, how much longer it took you than you thought it would to get everything packed up and stuff like that. I think that can you talk about that initial evacuation that you did, and especially if there's like tips for other people who find themselves in that situation?
Yeah, I'll tell you how very wrong you can get it on my example. Okay, so so I left a bit earlier because I saw this coming, and I thought, well, you know what? I got my equipment and so on. It'll take me about 5 to 10 minutes to pack. In reality, it took me over 1 hour. So I got it completely wrong. And in evacuation, I would have completely failed, right? And and there are so many other aspects you have to watch out. You have to turn off the gas, right? That's very important. You should definitely take all any canisters that you have in the garage and so on. You have to clear. There are a lot of you have to get anything any cotton that you have outside, from upholstery. You have to get away. There are so many things you can get wrong. And most important, you have to have a proper survival kit. If you are trapped, you have to make sure that the gas tank of your car is full and so on, because there's chaos in evacuation. So you really have to focus. And the main advice I can give in order to save yourself is is um, is to leave early, right? That's what I did. I was able to compensate for my stupidity, as I would call it, by leaving early, right? So I was able to correct everything.
Yeah, so you were prepared in that sense, at least, that you didn't
Yes, yes,
wait until the
yes,
last minute to try to pack up
yes.
everything and leave.
And of course
Yeah,
I
I remember you
realized,
telling me about. Uh-huh.
yes, of course
Go
I
ahead.
realized we were lucky. Of course, I understand that we had time. Some people don't have time, really. They don't have time. I've had some, horrific stories of the fire coming so quickly that these poor people don't have time. That there's not even that the map hasn't even been updated, that they would know that there's a fire coming. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah. I remember you saying, in addition to all of those safety things like clearing canisters of gas and things like that, remember you talking about how much longer it took than you expected just to get like your photography equipment and things like that together. Like, were you having to do a lot of last minute decision making on what to take, what was important to you or not? Did you have like pets to pack up?
Yeah, in my case, when I evacuated, I had enough time to pack everything because I usually also have a roof carrier on, so it
Mm.
was fine. By the way, Peter just asked which camera was I using. So this is a huge lens, right? It's an 800 millimeter that I use for wildlife because I want to stay away from wildlife. To give you, let me just just get this. Let me just replay this. 1 second. Let me just replay the video here. You can see this again.
Yeah, it's amazing to watch that footage. It
So
really like helps put things in perspective.
so yeah, I was using very good equipment because I use that for wildlife, so I don't get close. That's the main thing, and I love doing live stream. Why I went there was because I wanted to help other people. I wanted people were so worried about their properties, and they asked me, "Can you please live stream, Christian? Can you please live stream?" So I did. I tried,
Mm.
but the problem is during power outages, you have problems that you don't even think of. And I can tell you, I had no cell phone reception. You know why? Because on the west side, the power was out. I was on the east side. If you have a very steep valley, you get the cell phone signal from the other side. Now, if the power was out, I had no cell phone coverage, so I could not broadcast. And I had to disappoint these people, which was really frustrating for me because I wanted to show them everything's okay. This is fine. That's my forte is to do live streams under severe conditions also, whether it's wildlife or these type of conditions, just to show them what's going on. And it, for me, was probably the most disappointing moment, not to be able to have any signal and not to broadcast. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, hopefully you were still able to give them an update sooner than they would have had one otherwise. Perhaps on your return journey. It sounds like you just really did a lot of back-to-back driving there to get in there and then out again, correct?
Yeah, as soon as I got a cell phone signal, I uploaded my all the things for local people on another website where they could access it and see everything's okay.
Mhm.
That's the way that was the only thing I could do. Right? So, but I was working crazy. So, yes. Yeah. But let's talk a bit about wildlife now because it's interesting. Um, it's usually not covered. It's usually not covered. Kate says here, very well, wildlife doesn't have a voice. That's why it's so important that wildlife photographers, yeah, go out and I had a typical thing. Canadian TV phoned me yesterday and interviewed me because of the footage, because maybe the uniqueness of the footage. And I gave quite, and they pre-recorded it. I was giving quite a long part dedicated to wildlife. They completely cut that away, which I was very disappointed. So
Mm.
that's what happens. That's what happens. So at least I want to,
Well, maybe you could tell, Christian, maybe you can tell
yeah.
us now briefly or at length what was your spiel that they cut? What do you want to tell us?
I was going to talk about these typical experience about these ospreys. That how important it is to care for wildlife. So coming back now to the end of June, the body temperature of an osprey is about 110, 111 Fahrenheit, which corresponds to about 41 degrees Celsius. That's a bit higher than our own body temperature, a few degrees higher. So that means they can usually withstand heat for quite some time. If you have offspring in an osprey nest, right? That's what I was showing about. If you're interested in any of these, please go just look at some of the previous broadcasts that I was able to do. It was wonderful. I could show nests in detail to these wonderful osprey chicks being fed. I mean, this is just such a delight to show wildlife like that. And then the temperature went up and up. And then all kinds of problems happened. The temperature outside exceeded their own body temperature. Now, for wildlife in general, for a lot of raptors, it's not so much a problem because they dive into the water. They understand the same way that we cool off when we're too hot, we dive in. That's exactly what regulates your temperature. If the external temperature exceeds your body temperature, that's exactly what we do. It's the only way to survive, actually. And these poor ospreys, and for that matter, many raptors right along the Pacific Northwest, they were completely devastated. They had no way of heat exchange anymore. That usually goes via the tongue, by the way. So they jumped out of the nest. In many cases, it's almost like suicide, right? And they were picked up by all these wonderful wildlife centers, like OWL, or
Right.
there were other wildlife centers that contacted me along the Pacific Northwest and said, Christian, can you please help and broadcast this and help raise funds? And of course, I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
and yeah, and just a point of clarification. So the chicks are jumping out of the nest because it's just so
yes,
hot in the nest. Maybe it's
yes.
cooler outside. They can't really fly yet. But one of the things and as you mentioned, then we had a couple of interviews with sort of wildlife rehab centers that were helping rescue all these chicks that were outside of the nest. And what happens is, a lot the chicks can't fly yet, I guess, but they're hot and they need to get out of the nest, and they are able to sort of like flutter down to the ground sometimes so that they don't die. They're not just like splat necessarily. And then that's when the wildlife rehab centers came and pick up these chicks that people call about.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
yeah, and
Ex-
like we had a couple of interviews on that topic on the Human and
mhm.
Wildlife show, and they were talking about how this is record breaking year. The owl rehabilitation center. So remind me what owl stands for again in that context.
Okay, that is the Orphanage and Wildlife Center. I think it's probably a little bit different, but it's the Orphan Wildlife. That's
Okay.
what it stands for.
Yeah.
And they had a record number. That's
Yeah,
correct.
more than any previous year, much more than any previous year, it sounded like, because of these extreme heat conditions and wildfire conditions. Um,
Yes,
and
and
so they're having to like support and feed all of these baby raptors that they don't normally have, like they don't normally have the capacity for that. And so one of the things they were talking about is how expensive it is to feed so much fish to all these baby birds, and that sort of tremendous cost that goes along with taking on so many animals that they're trying to help. Yeah.
absolutely. And actually, wildlife biologist David Hancock, whom you know, and we did a survey around. We drove all around the Okanagan and counted as many nests as we could, which is a lot of work. But we went to all the nests and we tried to count. And I have to say, out of uh, 13 out of 14 nests that we observed, and we drove really from morning till evening all along the whole week, so on the whole lake. Only one had a chick left. I'm sorry to say, it was really devastating from
Wow.
the heat, right? So, we have,
And
I mean,
what
for me,
that was in late June or early July or
that was early July, about 1 or 2 weeks after that, right? The nest that I had shown before, that was empty now, that with the three ospreys and so on. But some did survive. I was very pleased this morning when I went in this complete smoke. Um, I'll just show you quickly what it looks like outside. I set up two cameras outside. I'm just going to quickly just jump, give you a quick screenshot. There, this is a live view, by the way, of what it looks like at the moment. You can see how hazy it is from the smoke. The smoke's about 4 miles away. And that affects also wildlife. I mean, a lot of ospreys and so on are very dependent on their eyesight, right? And if it gets very hazy, they have young to feed and so on. That's why I'm showing these things. That's another view, by the way. That was clear before, so they just set up two cameras there, and that's a live view. But I think you can see just across the lake, but you can see how difficult it is to see. That's the type of haze, and also what comes with the haze is terrible conditions for your and for everybody's lungs, for wildlife, for everybody's lungs, in fact. And some people can't go out then, and the ashes just fall right now. It rains. It's like having a a black rain coming down now. It's like a volcano has erupted. That's what that's the reality of what we're having. I was so pleased this morning when I took a walk with the dogs and I heard these ospreys in the nest. That just makes my heart jump. I could hear there's some life here. It's just so wonderful. And there were coyotes, running around, tackling the garbage that people left outside. But I didn't care. I thought, well, they're fine now. So that's the reality.
Yeah, I imagine, I mean, in some cases for the wildlife, it's not necessarily so different from you having to evacuate. They have less warning certainly and less possessions to pack. But
That's
I mean, they often
sure.
end up, kind of displaced the animals that can run away. And you might find them just in odd situations, like in urban areas where they wouldn't have otherwise been and stuff like that. Um,
Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh, Peter's asking here,
other,
are there
yeah,
mass
other,
migrations? Oh, this is a great question, Peter.
yeah,
I honestly don't know the. I'm just going to put that question up because
yeah.
it's a great question. Georgia,
So
I'm not
I think.
sure. Mhm.
Yeah, I think for most animals, unfortunately, the answer is no. And that's one of the problems with these big fires, right? When Christian talks about a fire moving at 3 or 4 miles an hour, or even 5 miles an hour, most animals don't have that kind of movement. I mean, some birds, some big mammals, but even then, humans were sort of exceptional in our ability for sustained movement. And I mean,
Yeah.
even without a car or something like that, we can run for longer distances than most animals and things like that. And we're pretty big, size wise. So I mean, if you think about, all the amphibians, like the little frogs and newts and reptiles and snakes and turtles, um, in normal fire conditions, a lot of them would end up dying, but maybe, a lot of them would be able to kind of hide like underground or something like that, or in a tree hollow. But these fires, these extreme fires, that's part of what makes them so devastating for wildlife is you can't outrun them if you're an animal. You are less likely to be able to get like high up enough in the tree or deep enough in the ground or the water to avoid them. And so they kind of end up unfortunately killing a tremendous amount of the animals involved. Yeah, most of them.
Yeah, I think you summarized it very well. I mean, one of the most devastating wildlife fires that they had in recent years was Australia. You probably know that, right? New South Wales. My goodness, all the koala and kangaroos and a lot of wildlife that were affected. So my message is there. It's completely clear. I mean, there's just been a United Nations report released on climate change, and people should read it. It's something we should all take to our hearts, take it seriously. This is it's not a joke. It's going to be part of our lives now. I'm absolutely not a pessimist. Believe me, I'm as optimistic as I can be. I get up every morning with a lot of energy and say, let's do it. Let's see what's going on out there. That's my attitude. But I still think we should not ignore, the impact of human beings on our climate. And that United Nations report that was released a few days ago is really disturbing.
Yeah, and I want to say, like, oftentimes climate change can seem like such an impossible problem to solve for those of us who are concerned about it. But when it comes to wildfires, I mean, yeah, as Christian is saying, look at the report. You know, I'll do what you can to, reduce your contribution to climate change things, but also to, to like lobby for change and stuff like that. But as sort of another aspect of what we can do in these situations is we as humans are actually learning a lot about, okay, given that there's climate change and we're not going to be able to change that very quickly, there are other things we're learning that we can do to mitigate it in the short term. And when it comes to fires, some of the things that people are doing now is they're logging strategically, like to have buffer strips. That way, there's going to be kind of like these break points. I know that they're doing this in the northwestern United States near you, Christian. Now, is like they're doing, given that they already do logging, they're changing
Mhm.
some of the patterns about how they do logging so that the areas that they logged can help prevent the fires from maybe getting to people's houses or maybe getting to certain spreading too much. So given that we've created a bad situation, and we need to stop climate change, there's also additional things we can do on top of that to try to mitigate and lessen the effect of some of these fires in the future. Some of it you can't do anything about. Like when it's too hot for animals, it's too hot for animals, whether or not there's a fire. Um, But there's certainly like a lot of people working on solutions to these problems as well.
There's an interesting comment. Apparently, there's an Australian raptor that deliberately sets fires.
Oh, I have not heard of this. I want to hear more about this
I have no
raptor.
idea.
I mean, this is what I'm saying actually here is there are many animals that are adapted to fire, and here in Michigan in the United States, we have an endangered species of bird, a small songbird in the area that its preferred habitat is the area of field that comes up right after a forest fire. So they
Mhm.
like to live at kind of like the edge of these new forests that were recently burned, but they're, there's like field nearby, and they're an endangered species because we don't have fires in Michigan anymore, because we don't let there be fires anymore, because we don't want people's houses to burn down and stuff. And for those who don't know, it's Michigan is very different climate than Australia, for example. It's pouring rain right now, so some less concern over fires. But there are certainly animals that are a little bit used to fire and better adapted to it. But again, not the type of fire that we're seeing um, in like the Western U.S. right now. That they're just too big and too extreme. I guess another animal that has sort of a positive fire relation is, and I don't remember the example specifically. I should have looked it up, but there is a species of beetle that I forget why, but it likes sort of the hot logs or wood that's left over after a fire. And this beetle, I think that maybe they lay their eggs in recently burnt wood or something like that. And this beetle is one of the few species that has sort of like heat sensing or like infrared sensing almost abilities. Like it has sort of like these special sensory adaptations to seek out like warmed, freshly burnt logs, and then the beetles go there and like lay their eggs or whatever. So certainly some animals are excited about fire in some circumstances.
Okay, Kate's just put in a link, by the way. It's very interesting. I'm just going to, so you can copy that link. So this must, let me just try and open this 1 second. See if I can do that. See what this is. Okay, black kites do bird starts fires. Oh, this is interesting. Thank you so much, Kate. Wow, you see, we never stop learning. This is just marvelous. That is marvelous.